Judges chapter 8, Gideon is in hot pursuit of two men, these Midianite kings that was creating havoc in Israel. He's on hot pursuit. He's looking for his fellow men as he crosses over the Jordan with his 300. He's looking for his fellow Israelites on the other side. Remember those tribes that's on the other side of the Jordan? He's looking for them to help him pursue these guys, grab them, do whatever they have to do to help out Israel. And they tell him, no, we will not help you. You have done nothing. We are not helping you. What would you do? How would you look at that? That's a huge betrayal. So let's get into it. Let's look at how this situation happened and how Gideon rectified it. Let's go. I'd like to dedicate this shiur in the memory of Rabbi Stephen Bernstein and my mother Iris Elizabeth Rowe. Who would you like to dedicate this shiur to? Great, let's go. Okay, so let's get to talking. So in chapter 8, it starts out with, let's read verses 1 through 3. The men of Ephraim, they said to Gideon, so what is this thing that you have done to us, not summoning us when you went to fight with Midian? And they contended with him vehemently. And he said to them, what have I done now compared to you? Are not the gleanings of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? Into your hand did God put the leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and what could I do compared to you? Then their indignation against him abated when he made this statement. So I just want you to know, this is what we're using, the prophets from artscroll.com. It has both Judges and, oops, let me get the camera, Judges and Joshua in it. There, if that's a better view. Why do I love it? It has the sages in it. We're going to read what the sages, we are going to read what the sages say for insight right now, because those few verses right there, I didn't understand what was going on. So the sages say that when Gideon mobilized the original force, so what he did not summon Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, to join the battle. Apparently, because the Midianites were blocking the way. And the tribe of Ephraim, however, resented that as an insult, that he made no effort to seek their participation in the war until it was all but won. So it's as if he considered them to be inferior warriors. And it may be that as brother tribes, there was a natural rivalry between them, which fanned Ephraim's resentment. So Gideon does use Ephraim at the end to chase those two kings. So he's like, what I was able to do is less than what you did, way more. You actually got the kings. God put those kings in your hand. Hashem, the name, it means the name, so that we don't disrespect God's holy name by pronouncing it. Let's talk about that for a second. If you see people out there saying this name that starts with a Y and they want to pronounce the Tetramagrega Megatron name, the Yud, yeah, don't do that. That was like the first thing in our school where we learned about Judaism. Do not say that. Say Hashem. It's so much more respectful, okay? That's our first concept. Be respectful of the Jewish people as they try to respect God's name. We should walk behind them and do what they do, not go around saying Hashem's name. All right, so anyway, so Gideon calmed down the Ephraimites. Let's look into the next few verses 4 through 8. Gideon then arrived at the Jordan. He and the 300 men who were with him, they were crossing. They were exhausted, yet pursuing. And he said to the people of Sukkot, give now loaves of bread to the people that follow at my feet, for they are exhausted. I'm pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. Let's just take a pause right there. So Gideon's on the chase after these two kings, Zebah and Zalmunna. These will be our first two words that we're going to be looking at in Hebrew. I don't know if it's this way or this way, that thing, where I'm going to put it. But you're going to see the two names, Zebah and Zalmunna. And one's name means, Zalmunna means deprived of protection. And when I saw Zebah, I first thought, why is the man's name Sacrifice? And his name is it's the word for sacrifice, but Safari had it listed as also as deprived of protection. And I guess when you get an animal, that sacrifice, they are no longer protected. So maybe that makes sense somehow. So anyway, so Gideon is chasing after these kings, and he says to his people, the Israelites, over on the other side of the Jordan, hey, can you guys, my men are exhausted. Can you provide some bread for them? Because we're chasing after these kings that are giving Israel a problem. Check this out. And in verse 6, but the leaders of Sukkot, these are Jews now, these are Israelites, they said, is the palm of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your legion? Meaning, have you already apprehended Zebah and Zalmunna and are holding them in your power, that we should have confidence in you? Since you don't have them, we have no obligation to feed your men. Let's continue on verse 7. So Gideon said, therefore, all right, not a problem. All right, I see you. I see you. That's what Gideon said. I see you. So when God delivers Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I shall thresh your flesh with desert thorns and briars. How about that? Oh. So Gideon, let's go into what the sages say. So Gideon felt that at a time when God was clearly rescuing Israel from cruel persecution, it was treachery for a community to refuse to help in even such a minor way. Treachery. So similarly, Deborah had cursed the people of Meroz for standing aloof at the national need. So it was necessary for him, Gideon, to enforce discipline amongst the people, but he could not delay his pursuit of those two kings in order to punish the miscreants. So we got attitude from the Israeli crew on the other side of the river going against Gideon, like, yeah, no, we're not helping you. Verse 8, he ascended there to Penuel and spoke similarly to them there. Again, more Israelites. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkot had answered. And Gideon like, huh? So he also said to the men of Penuel, all right, not a problem. Nobody want to help with bread around here. So when I return in peace, I shall break down this tower. And there's a big tower that these men have that the sages say they kind of put their reliance in. They like, this tower will help them. And the word for tower, I hope I'm Migdal. Migdal. Migdal is the word for this tower, for tower in Hebrew. And I thought it was kind of cool because it sounds like something big, like Gadol. So, okay. Let's keep it going. Okay, so Zebah and Zalmunna were in Kakor, and their camps were with them, about 15,000. All the survivors from the entire camp of the people of the east. For the fallen ones were 120,000 swordsmen. And Gideon ascended by the way of the tent dwellers east of Nobah and Jogbehah. He struck the camp. Now this is the enemy. He struck the camp of the enemy while the camp was complacent. Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he chased after them. He captured the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and terrified the entire camp. There's two words I want to concentrate on here. So when it said a little bit earlier, the fallen ones were, they're counting all the people that fell, that they died. And the word for fallen ones is Hanoflim. The word for fallen ones is Hanoflim. And that should sound familiar. It should sound like Nephilim, fallen ones. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because there's a concept there that it's people. People are fallen ones. They fall. Now, I'll put this out there for your consideration, even though we're not in Genesis chapter 6, but consider the Nephilim as people that have fallen away from the way of Hashem, as opposed to some crazy aliens and giants running around. Why? Because it says they were in the days of the flood, these people that stopped doing the things Hashem wanted to do, and they were in the days of the and they were also after the days of the flood, meaning after the flood happened, which is one of the reasons for the getting rid of the people that aren't doing what Hashem wants. And even after the flood, men continue to not do what Hashem wants. They are the fallen ones. Okay, so this is another one of those Hebrew things where you can see it so clear in Hebrew, but in English it's translated as something else. So what are they falling from? Torah. They're falling from the instructions that God gave man to follow. These gentlemen are fallen from battle. They are dead. But the thing is, when you're not doing the things that Hashem wants you to do, you know how Moses told the people, choose good things, choose life and good things, not death and evil. And meaning, if you do not choose to do the way of Hashem, you've chosen death. You are fallen. You are as dead. So you can see how the word can be used in different ways. And that's what we love about Hebrew. All right, let's keep it moving. Shout out to Rab Bernstein on that. So Gideon, son of Joash, returned from the battle. Oh, the other word I wanted to, the word where it says the camp, that Gideon struck the camp while the camp was complacent. This is one of my favorite words. I love this word, bitahon, but it's bitah. And they were complacent, meaning they trusted in their own strength. They trusted in their own defense. They trusted in themselves. So they became complacent, and Gideon was able to attack them. And we're going to have that word up there, the bitahon. That is the musar of trusting in Hashem. It's, you have faith in Hashem. Faith is theoretical. Yeah, I have faith in Hashem or God. But bitahon is boots on the ground. I show my faith through my works, through my actions. I'm showing and demonstrating that I actually have faith. All right. Let's continue on. Verse 13. Gideon, son of Joash, returned from the battle while the sun was high, and he seized a youth from amongst the men of Sukkot and questioned him. He wrote for him the names of the leaders of Sukkot and their elders, 77 men. And he came to the men of Sukkot and said, here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you scorned me, saying, is the palm of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your exhausted people? And he took the elders of the city and some desert thorns and briars, and with them he thrashed the men of Sukkot. Okay? Then he broke down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. This is huge. So Gideon chases those two Midianite kings, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he brings them back to both those two towns where they said they would not help Gideon with bread, keep it moving. And so, oh, remember y'all were saying, you're not going to help me because I don't have these guys? Here, look, see? And then he disciplined them with those desert thorns, went to the next place with that tower Penuel, the town of Penuel, did the same thing. Remember when he said that? Psh, 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 psh. Okay? And I got a note here that I want to read from the sages. This note comes from the Radak. And he thrashed, so he punished the guilty parties by either thrashing them with or throwing them upon a bed of thrones. Alternatively, the word for the thrashing, vayodah, may be rendered, he made known. That is, by using the thorns to punish the elders, he made them aware of their enormity, of the enormity of their sin. And I love this because you actually, when I was reading it, I read, and they knew. And I was like, they know what? And the Radak is answering the question here. We see in English, it just says in verse 16 that he thrashed the men of Sukkot. But it doesn't say he thrashed the men of Sukkot. It says, and they knew. And now the Radak said they were aware that they did wrong. So just see how just the English and the Hebrew can present different concepts. Let's keep it moving. So then Gideon says to Zebah and Zalmunna, so what sort of men did you kill in Tabor? Because now he's asking them, you went around killing my people. Who did you kill? And they said, he's asking the enemy. He said, your appearance is like theirs, identical like the form of the king's sons. And he said, Gideon, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. And as Hashem lives, had you let them live, I would not have killed you. I would not kill you. Then he said, Jether, his firstborn, arise and kill them. But the youth, he did not draw his sword because he was afraid. He was still a youth. So Zebah and Zalmunna said, no, 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 Gideon, you arise and slay us. For as a man is, so is his strength. So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescents that were on the necks of their camels. They had like some camel gold chains back in the days. So he took that gold. And I just want to read you a note. I thought it was pretty interesting. A note from the sages on the idea that these two kings are saying, no, 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 Gideon, you kill us. And the note is, let's see, where are we? The kings pleaded with Gideon not to appoint his son to the task, because as a youth, he was not strong enough to kill them quickly, and they didn't wish to suffer the pain of a slow death. As a much stronger man, Gideon could do the job quickly and relatively painlessly. The Abarbanel, the sage, he observes that the kings felt that it was improper for monarchs or the kings to be killed by a commoner. So if they were to die, it should happen through Gideon, the leader. So that's just a little insight there. Let's keep it moving. So the men of Israel in verse 22 said to Gideon, rule over us, you and your son, your grandsons, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. Everybody wanted to be their ruler now, didn't want to help them with a piece of Wonder Bread 5 minutes ago. But now everybody, oh yes, oh yes. But Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. Hashem shall rule over you. And then Gideon said to them, I shall make a request of you. So before we get to that request from Gideon, check this out. So Gideon refuses the hereditary rulership. This is an unprecedented gesture that the Jewish people had asked Gideon to become their hereditary ruler. None of the judges before or since conveyed their positions to their heirs. This was a tribute not only to Gideon's successful leadership, but also to his humility. For the sages note that such leaders as Judah and Saul were chosen because of their humility. And Gideon's humility is apparent from his response to the tribe of Ephraim. And his answer to this offer here to be king and a whole monarchy because of this. Also, we have a note from the Vilna Gaon. So he says, in this sense, the people may have asked Gideon to rule over them because they knew their shortcomings and wanted to avoid backsliding that had caused their downfalls before. Gideon's heroism against Midian and its allies and its firmness with Sukkot and Penuel convinced them that he and his sons could be relied upon to lead the people correctly by force if necessary. That betrayal by his fellow tribesmen was so deep that they would refuse him bread. I mean, it's the same. Remember when the children of Israel were walking through the wilderness by Midbar in the times of Moses, led by Moses, and remember he was asking the Edomites, can we pass through here? Or, hey, can we do, and people refused them simple things that wouldn't cost a penny. That type of betrayal. Okay, they weren't necessarily Israelites, but these guys are Israelites, and they said, no, that's the ultimate betrayal, and then turn around and say, rule over us. What? Okay, let's keep it moving. So Gideon says, I got a request of you guys. Let each of you give me a nose ring from his booty, for they all had golden nose rings since they were Ishmaelites. And then they said, we shall surely give. So they spread out a garment, and every man threw into it a nose ring from his booty. The weight of the nose rings that he requested was 1,700 gold dinars, aside from the crescents and the pendants and the purple wool garments worn by the kings of Midian. Purple as royalty now, remember that? And aside from the chains on the necks of their camels, Gideon made it into an ephod and hung it in his city, in Ophrah. Eventually, all Israel strayed after it there, and it became a snare for Gideon and his household. This is interesting. So Gideon fashions a symbol of the miracle to commemorate the miracle. So Gideon wanted to take advantage of the people's receptivity to him by creating a national monument for the miracle, which would preserve their faith to God when he was no longer there to lead them. Rashi comments that Rashi is another sage, that Gideon made a symbol out of the gold nose rings to remind all future onlookers of the extent of the miracle. If the small ornaments added up to be so much gold, imagine what a large army it must have been. So what I don't understand the part is, who's the Ishmaelites? The people that's fighting with him, or what? I'm not understanding that part. If anybody has any information, please put it down below. But let's check out what's going on in verse 27. Israel made an ephod and hung it in the city. Gideon, he made an ephod and hung it in the city, which is that national monument. But it says eventually it became a snare for Gideon and his household. And I want to bring your attention to the word that it is a snare. So Gideon, according to the sages, the Ramban, since the Jewish people had become accustomed to consult the Kohen Gadol's breastplate as the Torah prescribes, this led them to revere Gideon's ephod, even though the Torah did not sanction such a thing. So he made that he took all that gold and made a big ephod for their Seek Hashem kind of thing, and they ended up worshiping it in the later days. Let's keep it going. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, and they did not continue to raise their head. And the land was tranquil for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Jerubbaal, son of Joash, which is the name for Gideon, he went and settled in his home. Gideon had 70 sons emerging from his loins, for he had many wives. Full stop. His concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son and called his name Abimelech. Gideon, son of Joash, died at a good old age, and he was buried by the grave of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezerites. And it happened, now pay attention, the Bible doesn't just tell you who was born and this and that for no reason. So we'll be seeing that gentleman, that son of Gideon, Abimelech, somehow, some way, I'm sure of it. So it happened when Gideon died that the children of Israel once again went astray after the Baalim. And they set Baal Berith as a god for themselves. The children of Israel did not remember Hashem, their God, who rescued them from the hand of their surrounding enemies. Also, they didn't remember Hashem, and they also they did not perform kindness with the household of Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, commensurate with all the goodness that he had done with Israel. This kindness is the Hebrew word hesed. They did not show or give hesed to Gideon or his family, who went through so much to make sure that Israel could be safe. If that is not a concept, then I don't know what is. Somebody's done something good for you or done something wonderful in your life, show them hesed. Show them a kindness. Show them, you don't have to necessarily always give them a gratuity, but be kind to them. Remember them. Show them that you appreciate them. What's wrong with that? That did not happen here with Gideon. And they forgot Hashem. Let's see if there's another. Here's a note here from the Yalkut. Gratitude is a necessary Jewish characteristic. Those who are ungrateful to people will be ungrateful to God. Character is indivisible, for it is impossible to differentiate between behavior toward God and behavior toward people. The reason the Jews strayed after idols and did not remember God was because they had acted unkindly toward Gideon's offspring. They forgot all the kindness God had done with them since the Exodus from Egypt, because they were callous towards the Gideonites. And that note comes from the Yahut. And that is our time here in chapter 8, which is, this chapter had straight up treachery. Wow. It had idol worship. It had all kind of stuff in it. It's ungratefulness, ingrates. So we're going to see that same son of Gideon rise up in chapter 9. So pay attention to that. Now, if you missed the part where Gideon's mighty army of 300 men, and how God chose them, God chose this special amount of men to make a miracle against this mighty army. If you missed how that all happened and how God said, I don't want the ones that drink like this. I want the ones that, lap it up like a dog. I want the ones that drink like this. And how all what happened there, watch this video and that will tell you what you need to know. So click right here so you can join us in chapter 7.